Sweeney Todd from 1979, one of the musicals of the grand master of musical theatre, especially American musical theatre, Stephen Sondheim. He's still alive. He's still very much revered as the grand master of the musical theatre. This was not his first show. He had already, if you remember, written the lyrics for West Side Story in 1957. Then he composed and wrote lyrics to A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum, and Company, and Follies, and Little Night Music. So Sweeney Todd was premiered when he was already quite well established, and this is, at least in my opinion, one of the best musicals by Stephen Sondheim, and I will give you the link to a very interesting documentary which includes long interviews with Sondheim. This is from 1980. It's called South Bank Show. This was made just before the London premiere of Sweeney Todd, which was basically the adaptation of the Broadway premiere from '79. This was one of the shows that were directed by another great name in the musical theatre. The man unfortunately recently died, Hal Prince. So one of the best theatre directors working for the musical theatre, and especially if you saw the stage version, this is something that you can really appreciate, but we don't have time to really get into details. That's why I'll give you the links to the documentary. The show itself, I would say, gives direction clues already in the music. If you look at some of the musical numbers, like the first song by Mrs. Lovett, The Worst Pies in London, when she makes the pies for sale and she complains about the quality, you may recall that in the music already there are moments, there are notes that suggest nothing else but the fact that she's chasing the cockroaches on her working table. So there is no mention in the lyrics about the cockroaches, but they are there. You can actually hear her squishing the cockroaches on the table, and this is very characteristic for the style of Stephen Sondheim. Everything is there for a purpose, in the lyrics, in the music, in the stage direction, in everything. So all his musicals are very carefully thought over, and this is a very good example to notice that. So the story about Sweeney Todd, as I said, was based on 19th century Penny Dreadfuls. Actually, the immediate inspiration was a theatre play that Sondheim saw a few years before he decided to write the musical version. So the story about the murderous barber was already in cultural circulation. It wasn't one of the great Gothic stories like Frankenstein or Dracula, but it was there. It was not completely unknown. So a very, very quick recapitulation. We have a man, a modest barber from London, returning to England after 15 years transportation in the penal colony. So he's just like Valjean, Remember Valjean, who was unjustly sentenced to many years in penal colony. He returns. He is embittered. He wants revenge. But unlike Valjean, Sweeney Todd carries through his plan of revenge. He knows who is to blame for his misfortune. It is Judge Turpin, the corrupt, evil man of the law who desired his wife and so had him convicted on some phony charge, and so he could rape or force his wife to be his mistress, and also take control, take possession of Todd's toddler daughter Joanna. So now 50 years on, nobody really recognizes him. He's back and he wants revenge on the judge. He goes to his old home. He actually meets his old neighbor, Mrs. Lovett, who always had a sweet spot for him. This is quite important. She tells him that his wife had died many years ago and his daughter is now adopted, but in fact imprisoned by the judge, who wants to use her as he pleases. So she is in danger. We also have, so Joanna would be like the teenage Cosette, not the little girl Cosette, but the teenage Cosette, a sweet, innocent virgin who is in danger of being hurt or corrupted by the evil world. And then we have the young lover, just like Marius, in the person of a young sailor whom Todd meets on the way back to England, called Anthony, and of course, as we may expect, Anthony sees Joanna from the distance and falls in love, and just like Marius and Cosette, there will be the innocent young lovers lost in the dangerous world. But of course, Todd is no Jean Valjean. This is the main difference, and this is the main, I would say, difference in the meaning of the musical. So, as we discussed last week, Les Miserables is really the story of redemption. This is the story that tries to convince the viewer that it's good, it's noble to help people, it's good to try to be an honest man, it's good to seek redemption, and it's the best way to deal with your guilty conscience. Sweeney Todd, being a Gothic story, is really a story that shows you the negative example. It's a cautionary tale. So it tells you the story about revenge, but it shows you how revenge can become a very futile aim in life, that it will not bring you peace, it will not bring you redemption or some sort of symbolic closure for your pain. It will drive you mad and it will consume you in the end. It will just lead to more and more violence, more and more pain, and eventually injustice. So even if Sweeney Todd had a just cause in the beginning, he was really hurt, and he really had a case against the villain. In the end, he's just a crazy man killing indiscriminately whoever comes along. This is what revenge does to you. This is really the meaning of this story. Of course, before this moral is brought through, there is a lot of exuberance, and in fact there is a lot of dark humor, and especially if we look at the character of Mrs. Lovett and her interactions with the main character, and the way that they go about planning their revenge on the world. So Todd opening a barber shop to lure the judge into his office, so then to cut his throat. And Mrs. Lovett, who is a very down-to-earth woman, she wants to be successful. She has a pie shop, so like a little cafe, but the quality of the meat that she serves in her pies is bad. But there is Mr. Todd practicing his killing skills on some hapless customers. So there is a lot of fresh meat. Well, it's human meat, but you will not know that in the pie. So Mrs. Lovett starts a very successful cannibalistic business, eating the murdered clients of Sweeney Todd. There is a lot of dark humor. This is not really presented to the viewing public as something horrible that it really is, to murder people and then to eat their bodies. This is a very happy relationship, a very good business partnership, with a lot of flirtation, especially Mrs. Lovett. She cannot really care for another human being. We'll talk about it in a little moment, but she believes herself in love with Sweeney Todd. Of course, spoiler alert, but I hope you have watched the musical. She lies about Mrs. Todd's death. She has not died because of her mistreatment by the judge. She is still alive, but she has gone insane. She is the mad beggar woman who walks the streets and begs for money for some charity. Of course, Sweeney does not recognize her because he remembered her when she was young and beautiful and healthy. So Mrs. Lovett lies to have Mr. Todd for herself. Probably the nearest thing she has to a truly caring relationship is to an orphan, to a young boy called Tobias, who is the apprentice of the once rival of Sweeney Todd, so another barber. There is a duel between them, and of course the other barber, Mr. Pirelli, a very comical character, kind of exuberant comical character, gets killed. But there is this young boy who is an orphan, who in some versions has some sort of physical handicap as well, and Mrs. Lovett does not allow Sweeney to kill this innocent teenager as well. She adopts him and treats him as her own assistant, but also as a surrogate for a child that she would never have. She dreams of having a family with Sweeney Todd, especially in the second act when she dreams of going to the sea with him and playing a happy family with, of course, Tobias as the child of this family. So that's the situation, and this could be a good enough story in itself, an entertaining, dark, humorous story, but of course this is much better than that. This is more than that. It's a very intense, very dramatic story about the dangers of revenge, the dangers of madness. to see an excerpt, one of the songs, and this is for me the kind of key song, the entrance to understanding the whole of Sweeney Todd, namely the story from the end of Act 1 called Epiphany. Epiphany is a religious term. It means a revelation, which means a sudden divine spark. Something comes clear suddenly, everything comes into place. And especially if you watch the stage version, there is a very good stage version with George Hearn playing Sweeney Todd. This is the focus point. This song happens after Sweeney lets go of the judge. He had him in his office. He had him in his hands. He could have his revenge. But of course, he was prevented by the circumstances. So the judge got away, and probably now he will never come again. And poor Sweeney Todd just loses it. He loses it. He goes from wanting to have his just revenge to being a complete lunatic, ready to start killing indiscriminately anyone, everyone. He even, and it's a very interesting moment in the play, he breaks the fourth wall. It means he addresses the public directly. He just goes, the actor goes into the proscenium and he just starts pointing to the members of the audience, addressing them like, come here, I'm waiting for you, I will kill you and you and you and you, I will kill you all. This is a truly scary moment. Probably, if you ask me, this is the scariest moment ever in the musical theatre. If you have other propositions for that title, I'm very interested in hearing your candidates. For me, this song is the scariest scene ever written for the musical theatre, and it actually shows very clearly what this show is about and what the whole Gothic mode is about. It's the moment, the almost religious moment, and there are very strictly religious overtones in this whole scene. For Sweeney, this is a religious moment. He becomes a kind of priest, but a pagan priest who's ready to do human sacrifice. So, yes, we continue.